Everybody's talking about a rental crisis on the island of Puerto Rico in 2026. And as a real estate investor for over 26 years, and having done tens of millions of dollars worth of deals, I know the signs to look for at this point. So I'm going to show you the things that always happen before a rental crisis. And then we'll take a look at if they're occurring here on the island of Puerto Rico now. Here are the 6 major warning signs for any major rental crisis. Number 1, when rents start outpacing income fast. When rental prices climb faster than wages do for 2 or 3 years in a row, boom, that's a pressure cooker. You'll see people start doubling up, moving back home with their parents, and cutting out non-essentials. Look, that's the first crack in the system, but not the last. And when rents become aspirational instead of attainable, that's when you know a crisis is brewing. Number 2, construction actually slows down right as the population growth goes up. Classic economics. More people on the market and fewer newer units equal a rental explosion. And developers, or when developers stop building because finances dry up, or materials get too expensive, or interest rates go through the roof, sometimes permitting can become a nightmare. That's when shortages start to form. And guys, shortages always show up before the headline of rental crisis. Number 3, when housing stock ages out and is no longer usable, which is something that you see regularly on the island of Puerto Rico. In fact, in every neighborhood on the island of Puerto Rico, you see what we like to call zombie houses. That's old stock houses that have aged out. They've become unlivable. And until they get a value-add real estate investor to buy them up and fix them up and get them back into the market, they just sit there and they're not a part of the rental market, and it causes a housing shortage. It causes rental prices to go up. It causes big problems. And when you see that, what happens is the bottom of the market starts to evaporate because the people that are going to go in and renovate properties, they don't want to rent them to the bottom of the market, so they rent them to the top of the market, and then you have a problem, at least until you can fix the housing shortage. Guys, this is why real estate investors sometimes get a bad rap, because there's a housing shortage and they come in and they renovate properties and then they rent them at a higher price maybe than what other properties that haven't been renovated are renting for. People call that gentrification. They think of it as a bad word, and they blame the real estate investor. But really who they should blame is the whole market. And number 4, you can get a rental crisis when you see tourism demands start to outpace regular housing demands. Here's the real issue. Who is the market now serving? Is it homeowners or is it tourists? You see, when landlords can make 3 times the amount of money by providing short-term rentals versus long-term rentals, what happens? You'll see inventory shift to the more profitable structure, and that causes a rental crisis. Number 5, the shadow markets grow. This is stuff nobody talks about. People living in unpermitted units. Maybe we're talking about garages, back rooms, illegal additions. You know the ones, those houses where they're stealing power from the neighbor. Sometimes you'll even see multifamily houses turned into like dormitories where they're just renting things out by the room. When you start to see a lot of this stuff, that means that the regular market has crashed. Guys, this always comes right before a public rental crisis. Number 6, let's talk about government programs that create artificial demand or choke supply. This could be subsidies expiring, FHA or VA delays, or the dreaded rent freeze. That's happening in New York City, I think, right now. It could even be permitting backlogs or zoning bottlenecks. Anytime the government gets in the way and impacts the natural flow of supply and demand, rents will go crazy shortly after. Now let's talk about it. Are these things happening on the island of Puerto Rico right now? Put it in the comments. Let me tell you, I'm seeing some signs on the island of Puerto Rico that many people in the mainland miss. The first thing I'm seeing on the island of Puerto Rico, rents outpacing income. Guys, this is absolutely happening. Wages, while they have been rising, are rising slowly, and rents have been rising much more rapidly. In towns or neighborhoods like Santurce, Dorado, Guaynabo, rents have jumped up 20%, and in some of those more affluent areas, even more. And guys, wages haven't grown that fast, at least not for most people. So this, I would put in the checkmark box of, this could be a sign of a 2026 rental problem for the island of Puerto Rico. Let's talk about sign number 2. Construction slowing down. Guys, construction slowing down? This isn't a big yes. We're seeing signs that construction is going fast. In fact, when I first moved to the island of Puerto Rico, first came in 2017, I moved here in early 2018. there was basically no new construction on the island of Puerto Rico. And now, if you visit the island and drive around, you're going to see neighborhoods being built. You're going to see malls or strip malls being put up, hospitality plays. You're going to see cranes littering the skylines of the metro area of the island. That's San Juan and all of the neighborhoods around it, or the towns around it. Guys, we're having a bit of a building boom on the island of Puerto Rico. So this one is not looking like it's going to cause the rental crisis. Let's talk about sign number 3. Aging housing stock exiting the market. Where do you think this gets a check mark? Put it in the frickin' comments, guys. We talk about this every single day on this YouTube channel. Obviously, this is a check mark in the yes. We have tons of housing stock that has aged out and is no longer livable. We call them zombie houses, and that's probably why you subscribe to the channel, is because we go in and renovate these zombie houses and make them the nicest house on the damn block and then put them back in the market. But here's the thing. I'm just one guy, and we have a small business, so we're not even making a dent. There's over 300,000 of these houses that have been sitting there vacant and decaying for decades, and so they're not even in the market. In fact, the island says that it's got a housing shortage of over 250,000 homes. But there's over 300,000 zombie homes on the island. Seems to me like some real estate investors could come in and renovate those properties and fix a housing crisis. Are there reasons why these houses become zombie houses and sit decayed and distressed? Of course. They get stuck in probate. They have lots of different heirs who are fighting with each other about whether they should fix it, whether they should sell it, and then it just gets sitting there and forgotten about. And forgotten houses, they fall apart. And they're not a part of the economy. So it's a big problem. This is the Achilles heel, actually, for the island of Puerto Rico, and it's probably the biggest reason that the island has this problem, and that if there's going to be a rental crisis, this is the likely culprit as to why. This is, to me, the biggest red flag that the island has. These houses create a shortage. They cause rents to go up. They cause everything to become more expensive. So sign number 4, tourism outcompeting local renters. This one is a yes for me. I would put that check mark in that there's a lot of properties that have been taken off of the market and turned into Airbnbs. Maybe they're going to come back in 2026 because too many of them went that way and they're going to fail, but let's see what happens. But for sure, short-term rentals are rising in neighborhoods all across the island of Puerto Rico. And while they're not the main problem, because I think it's the zombie houses, not the short-term rentals, they are a problem. And they often take it on the chin, and people get blamed for rising rents because they turn their rental property into an Airbnb property. Here's the real issue. Look, Puerto Rico needs more quality inventory, not fewer short-term rentals. More than enough to go around. We just talked about it a few minutes ago with 300,000 zombie houses. We need more real estate investors. We need more people to come in and do the value-add real estate investing and solve the problem of the housing shortage on the island of Puerto Rico. Let's talk about sign number 5. This shadow market thing, I'm not sure that this gets the check mark or doesn't get the check mark on the island of Puerto Rico. I've renovated a lot of houses, and I've bought a lot of distressed houses. I'll tell you one thing that I haven't seen. I haven't seen a lot of garages being converted into bedrooms and then rented out to the neighborhood. I think that's happening in other parts of the world more than it is on the island of Puerto Rico. Probably that's because the island of Puerto Rico has such a high percentage of people that want to be homeowners, and there's less of that than there is in other markets. I'm not really sure. Maybe you see this and the shadow market is happening. Maybe you think the rents have gotten so high on the island of Puerto Rico that you're seeing families double up in single family homes and converting garages or making illegal additions to homes. I haven't seen that as I've been here over the 7 years, at least not at a rate that's super alarming for me. But let's talk about it in the comments. What do you guys think? Moving on to number 6, government programs impacting supply. Does this get a check mark for happening on the island of Puerto Rico or not? I'm going to say partially yes and partially no. And here's what I'm thinking, guys. It's hard to get permits on the island. There's lots of land on this island that's not allowed to be built on for one reason or another, whether it's too close to the coastline or it's got a zoning that's agricultural and isn't easily changed to something where someone could come in and build a neighborhood. There's a lot of reasons why it's difficult in certain areas to build new neighborhoods. However, I have to also give the island the benefit of the doubt because they are trying to attract new homes. They are offering 0% tax on long-term rents. So they do encourage people to go out and find those buildings, especially inside the core part of the municipality. And in these zones, they've got things like Act 182, where if you can renovate 7 units or more, you can get 40% tax credits back and only pay a 4% corporate tax. Also, if you rent on the island long-term rents, just on a house, even a single family house or a condo or a multifamily, and anyone can do this, they'll let you collect that money tax-free, and all you got to do is fill it out on your Puerto Rico tax return as exempt rent. So permitting is hard, zoning can be difficult, maritime zones can be especially difficult to keep people from building new housing stock, but they encourage it and they incentivize it. So if you become a real estate investor on the island of Puerto Rico, I think you get a little bit of both. You get some of the difficulties of having to deal with the government, but if you can get through the difficulties of dealing with the government, the island loves to reward people who are providing housing. And here's another question. Is Puerto Rico headed towards a rental crisis? If nothing changes, it seems like it is. Puerto Rico could absolutely hit a rental crisis if we continue to have a 250,000 house shortage. Puerto Rico could absolutely hit a housing crisis if some of these zombie houses don't get bought and fixed up and put back on the market. But there's also a path forward. There is an end in sight. If you, the local real estate investor, can go out and buy up some of this existing stock, these houses that sit there that could solve the problem, they just need a real estate investor superhero like you, the local real estate investor, to go out and make the deal of a lifetime. That's why you watch this YouTube channel. You want to be a real estate investor? Maybe you're a part of our Flip-Flop Flipper community. Maybe you're a finder, a funder, or an operator. We talk about all three of these business models. You, the local real estate investor, can go out and solve this problem. And if you're seeing our videos for the first time, well, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, comment yes, and join our free community, the Flip-Flop Flipper Real Estate Investing Community. And let's go do some deals together, guys. Watch this next.